Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams coming to you live this week. We are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Appreciate you guys jumping on. Let us know where you're watching or listening from. If you're catching this on the podcast as well, we appreciate you jumping on to that also. Show is made possible by our corporate partners. One of those being Freeman Landscaping Company. This is the largest privately owned land and irrigation firm in Eastern North Carolina. Family owned and operated since 1992, both residential and commercial landscaping and irrigation. 910-796-1166. Also, Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. That's ptservicesofwilmington.com on the web. Serving Southeastern North Carolina since 1983. Family owned and operated. Offices at Porter's Neck and 17th Street. Give Russ and his team a call, 910-763-8286. Kevo.
Hey.
What up, bro?
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Right. It's like it all just blends together, right?
It's one big thing.
From October, Halloween, until...
Yeah. Valentine's.
Yeah. It's like I had a vision of zombies visiting Jesus in the manger.
Oh, God. That's really weird in a good way.
Yeah. You know me. We're weird. So what's up, man? What's going on in your world? What are we going to dive into today? Thank you guys for jumping on, by the way. We got some viewers, some folks jumping in.
Now I'm going to be shy.
I've had a lot. There's 497 people, Kevin.
Oh, wow.
490 million.
That'd be even better. Because then it's a big blur.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think maybe... Probably we got two things to look at here. We got one is sort of we're kind of back off for a second and look at what we actually do. And that is we call it personal development, faith development. So it's really one big thing, but we categorize it in a way to help people understand that this is to help you deal with all kinds of things. I mean, it's easy to say, well, we can teach you or we can help you or encourage you. It's just, but calling it personal development helps people grab hold of it a little bit. So, even in the last few days, helping people with marriage things and parenting and all of that kind of stuff. So then you get to the other side where people are going out and carrying their gifts out into an anointed arena that we call business, which is really a concept more than a thing. And so you got faith in business, and we're kind of expanding out from there with groups and that kind of stuff. So that's just a kind of a recap of what we do, generally speaking, and why. And then, of course, the whole goal is to support the Life Center, which is the work of the Life Center. That's helping people live out their dream one step at a time, and we're growing and getting stronger and putting more things in place very slowly.
Yeah, I think that the underlying piece to that is, we've talked about it a number of times on the show, is you cannot segregate your life into boxes or components.
Exactly.
So it's not, well, this is my marriage, this is my business, this is my parenting, this is my faith.
Right.
And I think the error in kind of Western culture is folks have segmented their lives and tried to manage the boxes.
Right.
So I'm working on my marriage. Well, you can't work on your marriage without your faith.
Exactly.
And that involves your business and your kids.
Right.
And so we're taking the pie and kind of reclaiming the pie and say, this is your pie, right? This is your life. It's a holistic development of people. Right. And it's amazing to me, man. I just look at where we are now versus where we were on the AM radio station and watching how God has opened the doors and continued to expand. So anyway, it's just cool.
It's
reminisce.
Exciting. He's doing it, and we get to enjoy it. And man, I guess I'm saying all this from my point of view, because to quote a Southern term, I'm just tickled to death.
There you go.
I'm just enjoying the people that, just some amazing people God's put in our lives, and we get to love on them, and we get to encourage them and help them along, but they probably don't realize how much they encourage us.
Yeah.
And what a joy. I was just thinking about that on the way over here. So.
Well, it is a blessing. We appreciate those of you guys tuning in and that are part of this with us. And it's interesting because that whole concept of segmentation, people dividing their lives, like that is a great starting point for someone to step into a deeper realm. Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking with a guy just yesterday, and he's read all the personal development books, but he's come to the end of it.
Right.
You know, you get to that place where you're like, well, what now? I've read all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now you're ready
Yes.
for real discovery, because there's a layer of depth underneath all of that in your faith that really brings all of it full circle, brings it back to life.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference is we're talking about intellect, which ultimately points to man as God. Intellect becomes humanism. It's not. Intellect isn't bad. Logic isn't bad, but it's so far inferior to spirit. Spirit is much greater, and spirit's eternal. Mm-hmm. And so we have to look at the. You know, we talked about this before, and I don't know if we talked about it last show, but if you were to, it's learning how to navigate differently. But if you were to put your boat in the Cape Fear River, and I just had a picture of, well, what if we were going to go to Charleston, which is south of here? By car, it's 3.5 hours or so, but by boat, who knows? But you could do it. You could probably do it inland through the inland waterways, or get out in the ocean and do it. Either way, I could ask you that question. I've asked several people who understand boating. What happens? Well, the first thing people say, is, okay, well, we've got to get the satellite. We got to understand the map and how to get there. So you just dial it all in, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that pretty much?
Punch it in your phone. Give me the GPS coordinates and go.
Yeah, no different now than how you plug in Waze or whatever to get here. Oh, there's a red light camera right there.
Right.
It's awesome. But now imagine if you did not have that technology, or if something went out, the satellite, went out, internet was gone, something happened, electrical magnetic field or whatever. I don't know, but the technology isn't there. Then how do you do it?
Sure.
And that's where, these kind of ideas and pictures help people understand. We're trying to teach people to navigate by a different system.
Yes.
So the one thing that won't go out, that won't go away, you have to navigate by that. And then you can plug the technology back in. So, and if you're in a boat, that would be the stars, the sun, the elements, the coastline,
or even like indigenous people, like people who know the land. You could go to them and say, "Oh," he says, "Oh, you need to go this way." Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's where that community involvement is important too.
So the idea here is we're teaching people how to navigate life differently, and we're doing it through all areas of life, and down to just little nuances of like. How I want to be more consistent with the things that I'm doing in my life, and digging into those things. So it's about walking with you.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's fun. It builds friendships, but you will grow and your perspective changes. But it's navigating by the Spirit, which is the greater thing, instead of by man's intellect.
Yeah. We've become so conditioned as a culture to rely on social media, phone, immediate kind of punch it in, this is where you go, step by step, that we've quieted the intuition. Yeah. We've quieted that thing that God placed in us that wants to lead us and direct us. And so we box in our days and our lives into a schedule that's more based on logic instead of just opening up and being free to kind of follow wherever that leads.
Yeah, and that's what the Bible refers to that as it's quenching the spirit. I mean, there's a good term for you, but we want to make that voice louder.
Yes.
We want to edify that, and so there's a whole process to that I think this generation needs to relearn. I think years ago people took it for granted. But things always sort of evolve and change, and the wheels fall off of a model. It's like saying, you ask yourself, did Jesus come to set up the thing that we do on Sundays? I think it's a legitimate question. It's not about beating that up, but it's about, what was that all this is about?
Yeah.
It's like you meet somebody in an elevator. You say bless you. They go, what church do you go to?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, we're not polarizing and making a cartoon out of it. We're just saying, is that what Jesus came to set up?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I don't think it is. I think that it's so much more than that.
Sure.
And that's just a way of kind of helping.
Yeah, well, he talked, if you look at the gospel, he talks more about the kingdom.
That's right.
Than he ever talks about what he calls church.
Yeah.
It's like 2 times the word church is mentioned,
right.
but kingdom's mentioned like 150.
Right. That's right.
But we've lost the kingdom for what we call church.
Mm-hmm.
And while the church could be a part of his kingdom and his kingdom work, his kingdom people, we automatically put it in the box and say, this is my faith, this is where it is, this is my church, my pastor, and it's all possessive instead of what God's wanting to do in the body, bringing unification.
Yeah, it's kind of paradoxical in a sense because we can't grasp God, we cannot get a hold of him, but at the same time he descends or condescends, in a good way to us and becomes intimate. And over we see this. So this has to be done by faith. Therefore, if you believe that, even in the subtlest way, then you have to step into it.
Right.
But that looks different. You got to navigate by the stars. So if you back to the boating thing, if you can learn how to do that, then you can plug the technology back in. But if the technology goes out at any point, it doesn't matter because now it doesn't have any power over you. It doesn't have the power to direct you. This is the difference between being led by the demand of your circumstances or being led by the demand of your faith. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. It gets real deep, but that's why it takes FaceTime.
Yeah, well, the reality is that once people begin to learn how to navigate by the Spirit, they have the greatest thing. It's a limitless, untapped resource.
Oh, yeah.
And that becomes the driving factor rather than relying on logic. I always think about King David when he's going to fight Goliath. And everybody goes, hey, here's the king's armor.
Right.
And so David tries to put on the king's armor. And in our world today, that's what so many of us do. Yeah. It's the king's armor. What does this guru have to say? What's this 4-step thing? And that becomes the armor we fight with instead of David going, no, I got 5 stones.
That's right. And
the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
And that is the most powerful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to wrap this moment up here, I guess, this segment. But maybe just kind of restating the fact that we're teaching people, we're helping people, encouraging and walking with them in all varieties, how to navigate differently and to move away from being led by intellect and humanistic thought to a spirit-led faith, walking by faith lifestyle, all the way into and through your business.
Yeah, which is why we call it Wake Up Our Faith. Guys, we're going to take a short break and be back for more right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams, we're the co-founders of YouPrint, a faith and personal development organization based right here in Wilmington, helping you bridge the gap between Sundays, begin to discover your why, thrive in your gifts, and live the life of impact you were created for. Our corporate partners make this show possible, one of them being the Rising Tide Real Estate Team. This is a full-service real estate team representing both buyers and sellers here in southeastern North Carolina. If you have any needs in regards to home buying, home selling, real estate market updates, make sure you give the Rising Tide team a call, 910-620-7177. Also, our good friend, Melissa Thomas, known as Melissa the Coach. She is a speaker and personal finance coach who helps people begin to organize and structure their lives so they can live fully and freely and pursue their dreams and passions. She's actually doing that herself, so she's a proof of concept, which is what we love. You can check her out, melissathecoach.com, or email her, melissathecoach@gmail.com. So Kev, we dove in today to kind of reset and just remind folks that this is about navigating by faith. Mm-hmm. That is the Spirit. That is the greater thing. Mm-hmm. That's what God's given us to navigate by.
Right.
And so so when we apply logic and reason and things to faith, we've got something incredibly powerful. But if we let logic and reason kind of drag faith around on a leash, then we're living in inferior capacity for what we were created to.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I refer to it as well, and as the treadmill guy. You know, it's the same thing over and over. You can do a lot with a treadmill. You can practice for 6 months and probably run a marathon, even at my age. And that's not something I would want to do, but I could. It's that God will allow us to do a whole lot in our own strength until we can choose it, until we get worn out. And we see this a lot. We see people kind of jump in, jump out, and people are afraid of one thing or another, or concerned about it. I think we have to be gentle with people and loving, but at the same time we have to be a little bit firm about it. One of the big areas, let's just dissect that a little bit, pull one area out. One of the areas, and God's really been putting this on my heart a lot lately, especially in a mentoring capacity, is we want to move away from a lost mentality to a let go mentality. And they look very similar on the surface, but you think of it like the table idea, and people are holding on to the table as if that's the thing. Well, I'm looking at a table. I'm typically sitting across a table when I'm talking to people, and so it's an easy thing, an inanimate object to look at. But what's the better thing? I mean, your anointing is like God gave you the patent on the table, the idea, the spiritual thing. It's the greater thing. Why is it greater? The idea, you were an idea, I was an idea in God's mind, right? So that's the bigger thing. That's the thing that's eternal. That's the part of us, our spirit, our soul is eternal. And so when we live by that, we are meant to be led by that, to live by that, to expand that, to help that voice become heightened. Yeah. And then we are to carry it out in the place that is temporary, and that's here. And that's why Jesus said the kingdom is coming, the kingdom is now. He also said it's within you. So all this starts to add up, and you see, oh my gosh, I'm meant to live out something while I'm here. Yes, heaven one day. But a lot of people with a lost mentality instead of a let go mentality, it's built on fear. Whereas a let go mentality begins with faith, but it's carried out in love. When you let go, then you truly can love people because nothing else can get in the way. So when you think about this life being temporary, it is, but that's not a negative. It's a moment. You get to do something. Your life has value, but it's all connected from heaven into the earth through the Son to the Father. Father gives you the Spirit, and now you go to work, but you're part of an eternal family. So now you're living for being a part of this family. Rather than, well, I just want to do what's right so I stay out of hell, or one day I look forward to heaven. I mean, that's a pretty cheap knockoff version.
Existence, yeah.
And it's a mediocre side street. It's a bunch of good deeds here and there. You're 80, you turn around and you go, what was this thing about? Right. And the old saying, there's no U-Haul behind a hearse. Yeah. So it's not about accumulation or any of that. It's about what has God built you to do while you're here, and then of course eternity has already begun in you. You're already saved. You're His.
So one of the things, the catalyst to this entire conversation is the concept of faith. Yeah. So how would you, when you talk about faith, how would you define it for a starting point? As what faith is, and then secondarily, how do we begin to grow and expand that? What does that process, if you will, look like to get folks to believe the place that you are part of God's family and living out this thing on earth? Yeah. What does that look like for you, faith?
Sure. Well, there's the big toolbox answer that takes a couple hours or whatever. And I'm not the progenitor of this thing. I just learned this through trial and error and being with God and going through things. That said, the simplest way to look at it is it's just a series of small steps. It's getting a first down if you're on the football field, And so when you go back to what I was saying earlier is if you've got if you're kind of the coach, if you will. Now you have some authority. When you're part of God's family, you have authority, and so we don't need to beg Him for it anymore. We need to step into it and begin to live it. Well, that's a little overwhelming for some people. So look at the way Jesus said each day has enough trouble of its own. So set out to do things in small steps, just one day at a time. What can I do today? Can I spend 10 minutes in focusing on some joyful things? Can I read one passage and really live it out, take it in my heart like a movie? These are the types of things, practical steps. But what faith is, if you look at it real simply, it's like if you and I were going to go to San Diego from here, or L.A., I'd rather go to San Diego, but we'd probably go 95 to I-10 and then just go straight across. So, but we still would plug it into the satellite. So we know, okay, that's there. Now we don't have to argue about is San Diego there or not. Mm-hmm. You and I know it's there, and we've got a map. Okay, that's faith. That's what it looks like. We know because God said it. It's done. It's there, and we can stand on that. So we don't have to debate that anymore.
Right.
The question is what do we do along the way, or how do we get there? Well, we already set it up, so it's done. Just like it's done in heaven. You're His idea, I'm His idea. So let's go. Now we just get to go do it and carry it out. But we know that it's already there. So we don't have to make a San Diego happen. Mm-hmm. You see the difference there between how people are just begging God for their future and to know their purpose and all that, and it's already there. Mm. So now it's just yielding and learning to navigate by a different system. You have to do this by the Spirit. This is why God says walk by faith, not by sight. What He really means is not by your five senses, because all this is Greek. Like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, these guys are dead. God isn't. So which is the greater? 1 + 1 = 2, or the walls of Jericho come down, or the Red Sea parts. Let's go for the greater thing.
Yeah.
So again, it's a big answer, but think of yourself as going on a trip. The destination's already there. It's already done. It's already dialed in. Just go. But you're not going to. That would take us 4 or 5 days by car, and I've driven that. So, I know what we'd look for. But still, we'd have to do something along the way every day. And what would that be?
Well, you'd have to drive the car, and you'd have to stop and, fill up with gas and eat and, sleep and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, you get some snacks and, turn on some chili.
Road tunes.
Yeah, chili peppers or whatever. Whatever jazzes you. And go. But you're going with a childlike heart, excited about what's there. I'm looking forward to it. And then what happens is, you're depositing every day steps of joy, steps of hope. These things aren't deferred by God. We step into them. We have to choose them. People like the idea of freedom, but they don't want to make hard choices. And so people want to be free, that Jesus has given us as freedom, but they don't want to choose the hard thing. Well, the hard thing isn't loss. Oh no, I'm going to die and lose everything. The hard thing is I'm going to choose to be joyful in this moment. It's sleeping in the boat when I want to get up and fight. It's guarding your heart against things, bad traffic or whatever.
Yeah. So faith becomes the practical steps of moving along the path toward that thing that is in your heart.
Exactly.
And so that's where, I think people, a lot of times, people feel maybe lost in the process of it just seems too big and what is it? But it's actually just the reality of what you said is grab the word, grab a journal, write some things out.
That's right.
Start there and then begin to see your life as a road trip to where God is leading you instead of, getting lost in the mundane or the competitive or all the other stuff that it tends to combat faith.
Yeah, I mean, and you're a good example of this. Just over the last few years, anyone knows Matt knows that he's got such a good heart, and he's a great encourager and teacher and stuff. But But he would grab the ball like Forrest Gump and run out of the stadium with it, and then end up in the parking lot going, okay, what's going on out here? Did I do? I'm not criticizing. I'm saying you know now. I'm here. I'm gonna get a first down, and I'm gonna go after it. I know that I know. Just like David ran to Goliath, and he knew the same God that delivered him from the lion and the bear will deliver him. He wasn't navigating by intellect.
Yeah.
Because that was stupid. That's why in Corinthians it says if you want to become wise, you got to become a fool. This is why Paul let go of his intellect and spoke from the Spirit. That's why he didn't want people worshiping him, because he wasn't intellectual. So Paul, from a humanistic standpoint, could have been one of the greatest teachers of all time. But that's not life-changing. Paul it ushered people into something that was much greater eternally. It had eternal significance, not just, I did well in the world. God will give you both, but the world will not give you both. So anyway, all that said is, it's you learned, and I learned it too. Go back a few years, same story. So you don't want to focus on, if you're down 5 points in your circumstances and you're looking at the scoreboard, you want to go, okay, I see that I'm 5 points down. I got 30 seconds to go, but I got to play the play. What's the play? For the next 5 seconds, I'm going to get a first down. If I get first downs for the next 6 plays, I'm going to win. I'm going to score. So that's a different thing than saying, "Oh my goodness, the score's down." Oh no, and they're dwelling on that.
That's the fear.
Yeah. So fear is you can't operate in that. You have to operate with a let-go mentality.
Right.
They look similar, but they're
very different. Well, guys, we're going to jump in here. Second segment of our show is faith in business. We're going to dive into that right after this. Hello and welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith in Business. This is the second segment of our show where we talk about how to live out your faith, where you spend the majority of your time. For most folks, that is in business. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams. We're the co-founders of YouPrint, which is a faith and personal development organization. We also are, what do you call it, co-founders, I guess, of the Life Center. How would you say that? I don't even know how you say it. Our nonprofit.
Yeah, well, as far as the evolution of it.
Well, yeah,
board.
Yeah, we're
board members.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But our work is both in the business realm and in the nonprofit realm. It's an innovative process of how we begin to pour into individuals, help them discover who God created them to be, and then empower them to go and transform the city and the world around them. So that's what we're about. Appreciate you guys jumping on. The corporate partners make this show possible, one of those being Dr. Greg Veman at Seacoast Skin Surgery. And Dr. Veman also has a fantastic ministry called Everlasting Strength. You can find him on the web at everlastingstrength.org. His phone number is 910-256-2100. Also, Chris Hutchins and the team at Guaranteed Rate Mortgage. If you're in the process of buying or refinancing a home, need some mortgage help or advice, call Chris and his team, 910-344-0304. So, Gab, today we've really been tapping into faith, kind of building a foundation of faith, why faith is important, why it's the greater thing, why it trumps logic and reason, every day, and how to begin to live by that, to apply it. This is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of folks, because they go, okay, well, this is now business. And we've talked ad nauseum about the fact that you cannot, you cannot please God without faith. Right. Which is the word.
That's right.
And if you put in business on the end of it, it doesn't change anything.
It's still true.
Right.
It means everything.
Right.
When you don't have anything on the end, it's a blanket statement.
Yes.
So you can plug in parenting and business, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Women's groups.
So helping people bring faith, that greater navigational compass, into their work week is what we do, is what we help folks do. And so when we're diving into that with folks, what do you see as kind of the obstacles to that, and some starting points and some things that we can start to unpack?
Yeah. Well, I do think there's an emotional line that we draw and then sort of argue for it or to justify it. Well, this is, like you said, this is business. It's just business. It's not personal. That kind of gets back into what we were talking about earlier. You have a loss mentality or a let go mentality. If you walk around afraid of the score or afraid of losing, or think of all of that. When you're a kid, you need some rules. Mm-hmm. You need, whatever you fear, that's where your faith is. Mm-hmm. So fear and faith are pretty much kind of the same thing. Mm. Fear of the Lord, fear of everything but the Lord. Mm-hmm. Think of it that way. So, of course, God doesn't want us to be afraid of Him. He wants us to be in awe of Him. Yeah. So it's a different thing. But so stepping out of that, you have to go all the way back to who are you and what's motivating you every day. And so then you carry that trajectory out, and then you have confidence. So you can overcome and do things the way Jesus would, which is very seldom logical.
Yeah.
And nor did He allow anything to divert Him from His mission. So you have a sense of hunger and passion and mission, and it's from God. That's how you overcome those obstacles. But that's a let go mentality. Mm-hmm. That's based in faith and love. And love and fear are actually the opposites.
Yeah.
They're mutually exclusive. One casts the other out. You can't operate from fear and love truly like God, and you can't operate in love and with fear.
I love what you said about the fear of the Lord versus the fear of everything else. Mm-hmm. And essentially the fear of the Lord is faith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fear of everything else is fear, in the realm of them being similar. And it's where you place your hope and trust. And, so many folks, I've been hearing the word lately about people feeling exhausted. Just in conversations, people are like, I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. I'm so busy. You know what I mean? It's just this weight. It's like they're carrying around this thing, this 100-pound weight on their shoulder. Mm-hmm. And so for that person, when you start introducing this concept of faith, where does one begin to resolve exhaustion and stepping into navigating by that different compass?
Well, it's one thing to work hard, miss a night's sleep. It's one thing to, if you're working from something with a sense of purpose, you're going to get worn out because you love doing it, or you know it must be done and you're excited about it, you feel accomplishment in it, that kind of thing. So that's a different thing. You can be tired. Mm-hmm. There's another where you're stressed all the time, or you're for instance, we've got some folks, good friends, but the idea is, well, I'm going to double check my bank account a bunch, and the question was posed to me, is that wrong, or is that not faithful? And it's not wrong, but the question becomes, why are you doing that? Now, if it's coming out of fear, then you better believe that's not coming from God,
and it's not healthy.
It's not healthy. But if God's telling you, hey, check it out, and you have enthusiasm about it, and you're looking forward to what God's going to do, then absolutely check it 28 times. So, and that's not an indictment. We got some amazing, wonderful people that I just love them to death. Mm-hmm. But these are the kind of things we have to walk through, especially in a business environment.
Sure.
Because God uses business to elevate innovation and to bring people's gifts through and to change the world and to usher in the kingdom.
Yeah.
So, we've got to it's not about critique. It's about saying, hey, you're a son or a daughter. You can live that out right through your business. You don't let that be an obstacle to you. Mm-hmm. What are you focusing on? And so when you go back to even how I grew up in a church mentality, and I'm not saying church bad, I'm saying a certain type of church. Where it is, it's fear-based. Culturally, intellectually, if you do this, you'll go. If you don't do this, you won't. Or vice versa, however you want to plug it in. But that's fine when you're 4 years old. God doesn't want us to be afraid of Him. And if we don't do, or if we make sure we don't overlook, that's fear. That's not. There's nothing productive in that, other than when you're an infant or a kid. Yeah, you need rules and all that, but we spend a lot more time typically being an adult than being a kid. So we're not supposed to be bound up in that. We're supposed to take light into dark places. Now, don't misunderstand. The world, whether it's rock and roll or whether it's business or whatever it is, we've got to go be like Jesus into these environments. But it's not, it's about letting Him come through us into it in a specific way to deal with a specific problem. If you know that, and you know that God's already done it in heaven, the patent on the table, then He's going to produce tables through you. So you don't have to hold on to your one table and go, oh no, this is the only one I got.
Right.
I got to keep checking to see if it's still there. You do the thing that He puts in your heart and your spirit, and you let go, and you keep going, because now your expectation of God is, I believe.
Yeah.
But you can do it in baby steps. So, but the idea, again, in business, is to move away from a lost mentality, which justifies things that aren't really Jesus. Jesus would have never said, hey, it's just business. It's nothing personal. I mean, everything ultimately becomes personal.
Yes.
I don't think that's a bad statement in some context, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, in business, we've got to navigate.
Business doesn't give you license to reject the gospel.
Exactly. Yeah.
In any
that's a
capacity.
beautiful way to put it.
In any capacity,
right.
Yeah.
And
in fact, the gospel has the power to increase, enlarge your business. Not in a prosperity gospel-y way, but in a way of what God's good. He wants you to thrive in who He created you to be.
Right.
And so His principles and the way that He structured. I think about, is it Proverbs 3:5? It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him.
Yeah.
It seems as if stress and exhaustion is coming from disobedience to that paradigm.
It does.
Because you're leaning on your own understanding, and you're not acknowledging Him, therefore you're stressed and exhausted.
Yeah.
So if you flip that upside down, that's how you begin to overcome.
Yeah, but you don't have to run out of the stadium with the ball.
Right.
Just get a first down.
Warriors for Jesus.
What does it look like today?
Right.
What does it look like in this moment? And listen, if you have to, one of the ways that this is helpful, you always go back to what God has done.
Yeah.
And you always go back to what you can do. So, even if you have to go back to, well, Lord, I know you're there. I know you made me. I know you gave me purpose, and you put air in my lungs today, and I have a meal in front of me, or I live in, I have a bed today.
Yeah.
If you have to go back to that place, then do it.
Yeah.
Don't complain. Just do that.
Yeah. I was talking with one of our good friends the other day, and he was dealing with a relationship thing, and I said, the person you're dealing with continues to focus on what they don't have and what God isn't doing.
That's right.
So they're living from this thing of what they don't have and what God isn't doing, and that's stress and exhaustion. And that's what we're talking about flipping upside down.
And so here's the key in that. It's not about saying, oh no, and beating yourself up for doing that.
Right.
It's about saying, that's not even who you are. This is the enemy seizing power over your life through fear.
Yes.
He's got your chin and he's pointing it toward him. It's just like, it's no different than him saying, if you fall down and worship me, this is the enemy to Jesus, I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. And, really, Jesus is, what's going through his mind is, look, I'm already the king. I got this.
Right.
Go away.
Yeah.
He didn't have to convince the enemy. We don't either. We don't have to engage him. We have to go forward.
Yeah.
So we don't need to beat ourselves up, even if, you had a struggle yesterday. It's about moving forward, understanding who you are, and that God did that, and He gets credit for it. But not only credit, He wants a deep, deep relationship.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, hey, Jesus died and saved me. It's about wow, what does Jesus' life look like? What is he teaching me? And what he's teaching you is to be a son or daughter just like him.
Yes.
We can be like him in the world by stepping into our role and carrying out our mission just like he did. That's powerful.
It absolutely. It boils down to this, and here's a thought. We got to take it back. We'll dive into this a final segment, but is it wrong? Well, I don't say it's wrong. But is it wrong to say that Jesus came to save? Right? You said that earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he came to set up the kingdom. I just went back to that thought.
Yeah,
right?
well, there's a gospel of salvation, which is the centerpiece, but there's a bigger gospel, and it's the gospel of the kingdom, which you're referring to earlier. He talks way more about that. So it's not two different gospels. It's just the centerpiece is salvation. But most people just talk about that, and they don't realize that this is a whole thing. Like, it's not about getting into heaven one day. It's about entering into God's family because he just opened a door for you.
Yeah.
So, yes, Jesus saves. Absolutely. I'll stand on any table in any coffee shop
and say that.
that. He is our Savior.
Yes.
But he's so much more.
Yes.
And so, when you recognize that he's sitting at the right hand of God, and I've got a diagram that I show people this, but he's sitting at the right hand of God, but he's in us. We're in him. We're in the earth. He's in heaven. He introduces us to the Father. Father, the Spirit lives in us. It's perfect geometry. It's a perfect circle. It's Hebraic. It's parabolic. It is eternal. Now we live from that place into our businesses, into the world. Everything spiritual is meant to manifest into a physical place, just like an apple. Well, an apple isn't the idea of the soil or the tree. The apple came from God. He thought that up, and there's an apple. We can explain part of how it happens, but that is an idea of God's coming into the world. We get to do that through our lives. That's amazing. So what we have to kind of do when we get ahead of ourselves is just relax. It's okay. Come back to what you know. Come back to who you know Jesus is. But he's so much more, and he'll show you that. He'll do the heavy lifting. But yeah, he paid for our sins as the perfect Lamb of God. But he also rose again so we could rise again with him.
Yes.
And it starts now, not one day in the wild blue yonder.
Absolutely. So. That's good. We're going to take a quick break, guys. Finish up the last segment. Don't go anywhere. Be back right after this. Hello and welcome back to Faith in Business. This is the second segment of our show, Wake Up Our Faith, where we talk about how to live out your faith where you spend the majority of your time. For most, that's in business. Matt, I'm Kevin Adams. We've had a great conversation today about faith, navigating by faith, learning to live from love and letting go instead of fear and loss. And it's been very, very healthy, very powerful. I want to recognize our corporate partners for making the show possible. One of them being Century 21 Swire and Associates. These are one of our real estate partners. They have real estate offices, the largest Century 21 agency in the Carolinas. If you're buying or selling a home, do give them a call. Or if you want to get into the real estate business, 910-256-0021. Also, our good friend Chris Riley and the team at Fountain Financial Associates. They're in the business of financial planning, giving clients and families a better life, and what they call keeping promises. 910-256-8882 is their number. And also to the Honeycutt Group. This is a full-service insurance brokerage company, family-owned and operated for more than 10 years. Give Chad and his team a call. I actually referred somebody to them this week. They take great care of their folks there. 910-338-1773. So Kev, we kind of been talking about a lot of different stuff today and really powerful concepts. And to me, it kind of boils down into this challenge moment for people to say, what is navigating your days? Yeah. And getting them to the place where they can go, okay, it is faith, and that's it. Or it's something else. Yeah. And if it's something else, that is going to lead to frustration, stress, exhaustion, and ultimately the end of yourself.
Yeah, well, you put your faith in Einstein or Stephen Hawking or the smartest intellectual people that we can think of, and there's different kinds of genius. Or you put it in the Creator. It's really that simple. And if you're going to put it in the Creator, He'll do the heavy lifting. but He'll be gentle and patient with you, because now our relationship is intimate. We are His bride, we are His children, we are His friends. This is like so good. It's beyond our comprehension. So what we do is we gravitate back to, the will. Our own will is self-preserving. It's fearful. It's we don't need to throw it out. We just need to plug it back into the greater thing. Mm-hmm. You can have your table, in other words, but don't hold on to it. Just enjoy it. And if you start being afraid that you're going to lose your table, then give a piece of it away. And you will sever fear, and love enters right back in.
Oh, man.
And it shifts everything. Now, this is years and years of practicing that after having been wealthy, done it the world's way, and come back and built it and doing it slowly God's way, where no one, nobody, no thing can take away what God's doing. If you build your business around that authentically, getting first downs, going slowly, it cannot fail.
Yes.
And so people get off because they have these ideas, and there's so much here, and I don't know we have enough time to get into it, but I think the key in this is go slowly, keep your focus on Him, and let Him speak to you. Make an investment in your time of joy in the morning, in your study, and then stepping into the desires of your heart and dreaming. All these things are wonderful, but we get into the same thing. Well, I don't have time, or well, okay, it's fine. Then keep going and keep struggling with these things, or make the greater investment in the spiritual patent of the table. And guess what? Tables are going to show up. But people have to learn that it takes time. One of the ways to kind of go back over and over, here's a good question. When you get overwhelmed, you find yourself, we got to guard our heart from this stuff, but one of the best ways to do this is ask yourself a question. When you start getting afraid, say, no matter what. And that this is helpful when you plug it into your own life, and then you plug it into what you know about God. And that'll take you somewhere if you have faith. If you don't have any faith, then we got a whole other issue going on.
Sure.
So we're talking to people who believe or say they believe,
yes,
and are stepping in or hungry or excited about it. All right, so no matter what, I stand on this. No matter what, God will do this. There is a place where you can be confident in that. Now, a lot of people won't go very far with it because they don't want to project God's will, but we know a lot about God's will, and He says we can know it. You can know it in such a way that you're walking around in it confidently, not arrogantly, but in a way that glorifies Him. But until you get there, a baby step is to say, no matter what, I can do this, and no matter what, God will do that. And if you just let that sink in a little bit, it sounds grandiose, but it's very simple.
Yeah.
Because at some point you've got to draw a line and say, I'm not going back.
Yes.
There. It doesn't mean quit church and go off in the left field. It means, okay, live this out in your entire life.
Yeah.
No matter what, today I can, if I lose everything, no matter what, I can go and share my gift with somebody in the Walmart, or I can have coffee with somebody and encourage them. Man, you want to change that fear mentality. It's crazy how effective it is. But God tells us this: think on these things, count it all joy, over and over.
Yeah.
But you also need to plug in, no matter what, God will do this.
Yeah.
And no matter what, you start somewhere. He is faithful. No matter what, God loves me. No matter what. Start using those terminologies and let them get into your heart, and it will build your confidence, and God will do the heavy lifting, but just one day at a time in your business. If you're in a fear mentality, but this takes you to a let go mentality.
Julie Taylor just popped on and commented here. She said faithfulness never fails. And that is a very simplistic way to put it that is so true, is that no matter what, I'm going to be faithful.
Yeah.
And that's where you just hold the line.
That's right.
You just hold the line. And as long as you can stand in that, God will honor that, because He's pleased by faith, and He's going to fill things that are faithful with His presence. Yeah. And so if
He's really that good.
Yeah, if we're the only one standing there, it doesn't matter. We're not alone.
a guy said something to me one time, and I've repeated it to some different folks, but I remember this was probably about 04, 03, and we had some ups and downs. The big one was 08, 09, and for the next 6, 7 years. But I've created several businesses. I don't know, maybe 7, 8 businesses, and had success, and about half of them great success, and a couple of them, and some failures in the others. So I've seen the sort of panorama of this. But we had a tough moment, and we were struggling a little bit, nowhere near what the struggle would be years later. But anyway, that was all training ground. But this guy, he wanted some help. He called me up out of the Yellow Pages. Remember the Yellow Pages? And he wanted some marketing. He had invented a little tool, and so I helped him with that. But he comes over and redoes my whole garage for me and builds it out for me. He does all of that. I just helped, probably gave him $1,000 worth of my effort and time, and he comes over and builds my garage out for me. I had to pay for the materials, but he said, I want you to help me. So I spent it took about probably 4 to 6 months, off and on, and he taught me some things, and I encouraged him along the way. So this is an incredible thing that came from a moment of just being able to help this guy. He didn't pay me, but I gave him something, and God returned it, and I wasn't expecting that. But one of the coolest things this guy ever said to me that I tell people all the time, or sometimes, is when you start getting afraid, look at your children, if you have them, or think of a nephew or a niece or whatever. You know of some kiddos that you love, probably. Yeah. But if they're yours especially, you look at them, and this guy said to me, because I was struggling, he said, Kevin, don't you think that God's going to take care of those 3 beautiful children of yours? And I was like, well, yeah, heck yeah, he's going to. Yes. And that was me going, no matter what, because I didn't have enough chutzpah or faith or whatever you want to call it in that moment. I felt rejected still. I was still struggling with strongholds. I knew God would love me, but I still struggled with receiving that. Like, he's going to do this. It's kind of important to him. We are the most important thing there is to him because he paid everything. There's nothing more to pay. That makes us important. Not arrogant. It's humbling. Mm-hmm. But when you live this out in a moment, you need people, or you need God to speak to you in different ways. So this guy spoke to me. I know it was from God. But when you think about your own children, and you can start right there, and that'll help you go, wow, wait a minute. God did give me this business. He's going to do something with it. Here's what's going on. And yes, he will do that for me because he feels about me just like I feel about them. Yeah. And he feels that way about them too.
It's funny. I keep hearing, as you're telling this story, I keep hearing hope deferred makes a heart sick. Because I hear the cynic going, well, I have been faithful and it didn't work out or whatever, right? And it really boils down to, okay, then defer your hope. Yeah. And be sick anyway.
Well, we get kind of, sometimes I get a little smart alecky. It's because I don't want to waste any more time with that. Yeah. It's not about the person. It's more about, take the pill or don't. Yes. We don't have time for that. These days are flying by. So if you believe it, go, and we'll go right with you.
And live it.
But you don't have to get overwhelmed. Just take a step. Take a step. And so, but hope deferred makes the heart sick, and a dream realized is a tree of life. It's a complete statement. But the difference is God is not the one deferring the hope.
Yes, we are.
We have to choose it. So part of navigating is making a choice, a simple choice, going back to no matter what, I choose this. Yes. No matter what, God chose this. That choice, the hard choice, is freedom. You exercise your freedom by choosing to be joyful when circumstances are coming at you. And you'll see God show you a way through it. Yeah. And not only that, he'll give you incredible wisdom, and you keep going. People are, what are we? We all, when we live by intellect and all this stuff, it's humanism. Ultimately, it only gets us an inch off the ground compared to the Spirit, which takes us completely out of that realm.
Yeah.
This is why Jesus didn't have to argue with. He could slice and dice the Aristotles and the Platos, because he was coming from a spirit, a superior place. But anyways, just take baby steps. Don't get overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Let God feel His presence. Choose joy. But if you're not going to choose joy in the worst moment, then you have let go of your freedom.
Yes.
And you don't really want freedom. What you want is prison.
Yes.
And the devil will sure put you there.
Amen. That's what a powerful way to end the show today, and really kind of wrap all this up. If you refuse to choose joy, then you are letting go of your freedom and you're choosing prison.
Yeah.
And that's such a powerful thing, especially for me. Joy's been something the Lord's just been putting on my heart lately. So
sometimes you got to run out of the building and get a hamburger with a buddy.
Amen.
That's all right.
Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Wake Up Our Faith, Matt, him, Kevin Adams. We'd love for you to check us out online, youprint.life. That's www.youprint.life. We look forward to seeing you guys back next week, and we'll talk soon.